Yeah, welcome to Excel helpers for generating randomized Moodle quizzes. This time we talk about a helper to generate calculation questions. Yeah, a warm welcome to Excel Helper for Moodle quizzes. My name is Joe Fensterle, professor of biotechnology at the Rhine-Waal University, and here I will introduce you an Excel helper to generate calculation questions with follow-on error calculations and so on. So you will see in a while, so this is certainly the most complicated Excel helper. However, it helps you quite a bit. I use that, for example, in bioprocess engineering. Before using that Excel helper, I had to correct all my exams by hand, which took me, as there are many calculations inside, at least 2 hours per student. Now I can correct all students within 3 hours, and the exams are the same at the end. So it's not that there are no more calculation. They do it on their sheet and have to transfer the results. You will see it in a second. Setting up these questions is not so easy, at least as soon as you want to reach a certain complexity. So I would recommend watch the video on the close questions first, and if not yet done, watch the introduction video first before you start going to these calculation questions. So before talking an hour, let's show what to expect. So this is an example in Moodle, and this is exactly one of these calculations in bioprocess engineering. So you see that this is a quite lengthy calculation. So you have here the text, and you see here I can generate how the percentage of the medium, the rate, and so on. So all these numbers are generated in a randomized way via this Excel sheet. And then the Excel sheet generates these interim results and so on, where I can put the type thing. It's a closed type internally, so therefore you can also introduce different additional things like yes, no, and questions like this. So not just calculations are possible. And again, this is fully randomized. So you have every student has a different set of numbers. So let's directly go into the Excel sheet and demonstrate how this is generated. There will be, of course, a more detailed explanation at the end. So we have our intro text, welcome to your apartment. Your apartment has 2 rooms, room A has sidewall and so on. Then you have the solution, what is the area of your apartment and so on. So you come with your solution, and what you do is, as you randomize, you generate first your data sets. And now 3 sets, I would say 7, we want to generate. I click here, and you see I have randomly generated data sets, and I can say that A is, for example, always between 4 and 8. We will see that in a while when this is explained. And now I have my data sets. I generate my Moodle quiz, 1 mouse click, and let's go back to Moodle and let's import Moodle-XML. Here we are. And I have generated 7 questions. Here they are. So with 1 click, I have generated 7 questions. And I go to preview, and you see this is how it looks like. So I have randomized the number 4.5 and 3.7 and so on is randomized, and I have my question, I have a table, I have in addition the option to introduce other types of questions. This is what we have generated. Yeah, okay. So we will do a more thorough explanation, of course, in a second. And again, I strongly recommend don't start with this video. Start, if you didn't watch the others, start with a close question type, because this introduces a bit more how this is structured, because the calculation is certainly the most complex one. Maybe before we start, you could say, why shouldn't I just use Moodle? Because also Moodle can randomize numbers. Yes, it can. However, generating that's the question in Moodle is a real pain in the ass. I tried that. This is one thing. So getting this randomization started will take you a week. And the other major problem is that Moodle cannot take variables. So you cannot say, for example, if you do that with a room, that you calculate room 1 first, then room 2, and then at the end you add room 1 and 2. This doesn't work. You have to add, at the end you have to, if you to calculate the complete area of your apartment, you have to bring a large formula because you cannot save the interim's results. And that makes it completely unusable for reasonable questions where it's really worth it to use Moodle and to calculate it. What you can also do with this Excel sheet is you can re-import the answers of your students. I will show you at the very end, and check the results automatically and bring them back. And this is, of course, also very, very useful and very helpful. Okay, but again, it's complex, so we start step by step and start easy, of course. Yes, so let's dive into the Excel sheet. So let's start with the introduction. So we have the background. So the header is welcome to your apartment. This is obvious. Your apartment has 2 rooms. Room A has sides with the length of whatsoever meter. And as always, as with the closed questions, if you put this triple X is then being substituted later on with a value. Put already a value which makes sense. Here, for example, 6.5. Here is the value being generated later on. So it makes sense for your calculations already if you write it down. Put in this randomization stuff your value, what you want to, what is a reasonable value for setting up your sheet. Then you come with the remaining text, and you see, and this is the other side. Room B has sides with a length and meter. Okay. Also here I put already some numbers. Let's say here it's 3, here it is from 5, and here it's 2. Let's make it a bit nicer. Again, HTML is not absolutely required, but of course makes it look nicer. Why you have to put HTML? Because this is imported as HTML source. So if you make it in bold or whatsoever, this will not be included in the import exports. You have to put these HTML elements. So what it does at the end is it just will put this in a own paragraph, and then it looks a bit better, and the background will appear in bold. Okay, so at present we have the text, we have the x-axis where it's added, and we have already put values we like, but at present this will do nothing because they will not be generated at the end. So first of all, we need to define a name of a variable here. So this is room A, so let's say it's A1, this is A2, this is room B, B1 and B2. So now the sheet knows, aha, there is a variable, and I have to generate this variable. Now you have to put, you have to put a lower and the upper limit. So what are the values of your variable, what you want to have? So let's say the lower limit is 4 here, the upper limit is 8. For this, the lower limit is 2 and 5. Of course, ideally your values you have here are in the middle in order that you can play around or have a reasonable result at the beginning. Now here you 2, 6, and here you're, let's say, 2 and 4. Significant digits, this is how this has been generated. If you say 2, then it's 6.2, it's not 6.25. So I always use that. If it would be 1, it's 4, 5, or 6, or 7. Yeah. So significant digits. So now we have all information here. Now we have our intro text ready. Now let's go to the solution. What is the area of the rooms? And as always, I have here the type. So here, this is just text. In general, I will have then numerical values. And I say room A, room B, and what is the area of your apartment? And I say area apartments. Okay, then this is a numerical response. So NM, NM, again text, again NM. If I would put it like this, there will not be any units or there will not be a new paragraph. So I will have to add some HTML code here. Otherwise, it's not really usable. So now this is the same text with some HTML. Now this is in bold, this is A, and now I have also the unit. So this puts meters square here. Yeah, so now I'm happy. And of course, these values here are calculated. So I put the value here is based on the values of the intro text. This is A1 fold L2. So an equal intro, this value fold this value. And of course, room B is equal to this value fold this value. Okay. And the area is, of course, then equal to this value plus this value. So the value contains the correct value. And of course, you can put in an Excel formula here. At present, no points would be attributed. So I want to have 1 point here, 1 point there. And let's say for the area, I give 2 points. So this is kind of the basic definition. And now I also put here for this variable name. So I say this is then A, this is B, and this is the up surface, for example. Yeah. So I put these variable names here, and I should put always the same. Otherwise, my following things do not work. Now, for a simple calculation, things are easy. You just have your two surfaces and then you will get a reasonable result. However, if you have, for example, bioprocess engineering, there are a lot of interim steps in between. Despite the fact that you define ranges of values, as the calculations are more complex, it can be that, for example, you get a negative result of an area which makes no sense. So because you cannot try all the combinations and you cannot test, you would not start with the lowest, all the lowest, and so on. So you can, with more complex calculations, not predict whether the results at the end also become reasonable or not. So you have the chance here to say, I want to have of the result, I want to have a lower limit and the upper limit. So I want to have I define how the limits of my results are. So I just put that in. So I say the lower limit is 5, the upper limit is 30, and limit's okay. It's a formula. So I just check whether my actual value is larger than 5 and lower than 30, and the same for here, whether it's in between 5 and 30. Are the limits okay? So I just then check with and put these together, and then all the limits are okay. What happens if the limits are not okay? The software will not use this value data set. It will generate a new data set as long as the values are okay. So of course, if things get more complicated, so this is, you need to know somehow what to do, what you're doing, because if the limits and so on cannot be met, the sheet will get stuck. So this is so make sure that you have an idea what to do. Here it helps also maybe to have at least a glimpse of an idea how an VBA macro works. So these are certainly these sheets are certainly not made for absolute beginners. And having now this correct or wrong, we also have to add the number of significant digits. We generate data set. We have generated 4. Let's generate 3. We are happy with that. So now we have 3. And now if I want to generate the output, include number as a last question. This we will come up. We will need that at the end if we want to correct the results of the students. Now here we say the error tolerance. So I say if the value is within a precision of 1.5%, so then it's accepted as correct. If it's within a precision of 4%, it's 50% of the points are attributed. So this I can define myself. I can also say 2% or 6% and so on of each value, obviously. Yeah. So if the value is 10 and it's 10%, then it's plus minus 1. If the result is 1 plus minus 10%, it's 0.1. That's clear. So it depends also on the values. Here I don't need to give how much questions I want to produce because the number is defined within the data set. So let's generate the Moodle quiz. Done. And let's go to Moodle. And we're already in the import dialog, Moodle-XML. Here's the document. Import. We have generated 3 questions. And here we are. And preview. Here we are. Your apartment has 2 rooms. Room A has sides with a length of 6 meter and 3.2 meter. Room B has sides with a length of 6 meter and 3.5 meter. Please give your results. Okay, so let's calculate that. 6 meter 3.2, then 19.2. Room B is 6 and 3.5, so this is 21, and therefore the area of my apartment is 40.2. And yeah, this is correct. I'm happy, so everything is fine. Now, this is, of course, a very, very simple version. This is something you could do in Moodle without the need of an Excel sheet. Already, the randomization would already help, so even if it's so simple. However, this is not really something where you need to do a correction, so the real questions will be more complex. So often, for example, you have this area of the apartment. This is the results what you want to have, but you don't want to have all these interims results kind of appearing also in the text because that makes it also difficult to read. So let's put now the interims result in a table. And of course, you can also, as you have seen in close, then randomize within the table, but this we won't do now, but we will generate now a table containing the interims results. So let's jump into Excel. Here we are. The intro is the same, so there is no difference. We have the same values, but now we want to have a table here. Okay, so I just inserted that and I've changed the order because I have now my result at the beginning. What area is the area of your apartment? My area of the apartment is meter square. Here is my result. And then I say, okay, interim result, please put your interim result in the following table. And as with the close question, I can just by typing in the type table, start table, end, I can then generate a table. And here I have the text which gives the header as in the close text question. And then I have room A, room B. And this gives me then in one column I have room A, in the other I have room B. And this gives me then this rooms. So that the calculation is the same. I have my room A is calculated from this values in the introduction, and room B is calculated from the values of the introduction. Now let's add one more thing. So let's say what you want is you want that room A is always larger than room B because you have kind of a picture where this is depicted larger and you want to have this always larger. How can you achieve that? As you see here, if you go to the introduction, you see that the size here are overlapping. So of course you can, if you have if room B has 6 and 4 meters, this is only larger than 4 and 2 meters. So because that's drawn randomly, how can you achieve that? So let's just check if A is larger than B. Well, then I just say this minus this. And what I do here is just I add as a lower limit 0. Because if it's lower than 0, this will be no more true. And I also assign here a variable A versus B. The problem is now it would appear in the document. I don't want to have that. So I would say this is, I can make that hidden. So if that's hidden, it doesn't appear. It's just internally, and I can use that as a calculation. However, I need to make sure that this is also included here. And now it is checked. So if I now generate my data sets, let's generate 10 in order that we can see that. This A versus B doesn't appear here, but if you look at because it's hidden, but if you look at these values here, you see that A is always larger than B. It doesn't appear. If this is not included, take that out and generate our data set. Yeah, here you see 10 is larger, A is larger than B. So this can then happen again. Okay, so you see that with this functionality, we have added the possibility to check values for additional restraints we don't want to have appearing in the final results. And second, we have generated a table for interim results. How you do that, it doesn't matter. You don't need to put that in a table. I always do that because then you don't have tons of text and it makes the document more legible, especially if it's larger. You have seen the bioprocess engineering document. If the interims values wouldn't have been in a table, then you would have a kind of a text like this and you can't read anything anymore. There are more things you can do, and this I also want to show you. Again, it's at the end, it's a closed question, so you can type closed questions also here. Now, it could be that you want the students to say, is this a large or small apartment? And say, okay, how would you judge the size of the apartment? Again, ignore this HTML tags. Hint, apartments for students are considered large if their size exceeds 35 meters square. I have no idea, but I think 35 meters square is already for a student quite reasonable. And then, in my opinion, the area of this apartment is da, da, da. So, of course, this is a text. This is also a text. And this is then a multiple choice. And we attribute 1 point. So we cannot just put here now a fixed response because we don't know what the result is. So in this case here, I have 35.5. So this is larger. So in this case, large is correct. And small, of course, is incorrect. So, of course, without a hyphen, this would be considered as a formula. So if I would put that, it would always include that as the response, as you know from closed questions and others like this is handled. The problem now is, of course, it depends on what I have here. So if I have 35.5, that's correct. Otherwise, it's the other way around. So I have to put also this in as a formula, and this is no problem. I can do it. If this is the German when, so therefore it's if this value is larger than 35, then this is the response. Otherwise, it's the other way around. It is, and of course, I need to put that as a text also here. Now I have this inserted as a text, and now the result depends on what this is and will be varied. So let's generate the dataset first again, because we have removed this. We're happy with 5. We have put that hidden and removed it again. So A should be always larger than B. This is the case. And you see that we have the response 1. We have a large apartment. We have always large apartments here. So, but we can check that 1 will be large and 3 will be small. So let's again generate the output. Now let's include the numbers that you see what this actually implies. I put the German true, and we generate the Moodle quiz and go to Moodle. And as always, we import Moodle-XML. Here is our newly generated question set, not just 1. 3 should be now. Just check that we generated 5. So this would be, you should remember that. And I think the one, we had the larger version, so I don't calculate here. I'm to board, so their larger was correct. Here I have now an additional field which can be ignored. Check. Okay, just large here is considered as correct. Of course, the other values are not correct because I put whatever. And now let's go to 3. Because this should have been the one where large is not correct. Check. And you see here now large is not correct. This is small. And you have also seen we have the interim result now in a table. You could have already also randomized these values. Okay, so this is how we have that in Moodle. And of course, you can then have a more complex version. You already see that although this is now not very much what you're calculating here, things get quickly complex if you do especially the calculation within this this sheet, because you don't really know what you have, because you don't have a real text you have for yourself, no explanations and so on. So it's usually better to have the calculation on a separate Excel sheet and just put an equal to the result and then put the result at the other sheet. Yeah, let's go to an example how to handle that if things are getting a bit more complicated. So what you have here is the same, yeah? It's just the size of the apartment. Now we have added a bonus question, and the bonus question is: assume that a house has been constructed just consisting of room A, B, connected to each other where there's more sides. You need to buy a curbstone around the complete house with a P, by the way, to separate it from the garden. What is the length of the curbstone if you neglect the thickness of the wall? Now this is already something, because this you need to think of the smaller sides, you need to subtract it and so on. So there things get already a bit complicated. And having this in this calculation here, you can do that. However, this is not really something where you can really see what you have done. So the better solution is, so we do the full calculation now on a separate sheet. So full solution, we say area of the rooms, room A, A1, we pick the values from the intro, as you see. Then we have the area, room B. We also put from the intro. Then we have the area here. We don't care too much about formatting because that's not going into the sheet for the students. And then for the area of the apartment, we also added the formula in order that we remember what we did, because then we don't just have to trust we don't always have to look into the Excel formula. Of course, it's B8 plus B13. So this is this plus this. If we click on that, then it's getting colored. So it's this plus this. Everything is fine. So again, this was something which didn't kill us, but the parameter is already a bit more. So therefore, we could mark, for example, what is the solution path and calculate the parameter, subtract the length of the smallest side. So I calculate first the parameter of room A, parameter of room B, and then I subtract the smallest side, and that's it. And by the way, I have to subtract twice the smallest side. Fold 2. And I do the calculation. And everything is fine to fold. I have an equal instead of a fold. This is not so good. Okay, so again, I have the full calculation on this sheet, and the only thing to do is now I refer in my solution, as you see here, to the values of the aux calculation. So I just put here an equal to the aux calculation where the corresponding result has been calculated. So at the end, this is exactly the same. So I'm not exporting it now because you will have just this bonus question in addition. However, it's way more easy to read. So do that in the aux calculation, and then you transfer the correct results to this sheet here. Okay, so we have now the way to set up more complex calculations. However, we have another problem. So if our student does the exam, so in an interim assessment, everything is fine. If it's a non-graded assessment and the student can repeat it as often as he or she wants, and if it's even just needs to be done and not passed, then this is no problem, even if it's a complex question. So let's briefly go to Moodle. So if the student calculates room A and B, and room A and B are correctly calculated, then of course he can also calculate correctly the area for the apartment and will get full points. The problem is if room A is wrong, so if room A is instead of 5 meters square, 6 meters square, of course, even if room B is correct, the area of the apartment will not be correct, because this is a typical follow-on error. In the case of an automatic, you cannot handle that follow-on error within Moodle. So Moodle will always judge as the area of the apartment is not correct. Again, for a question which is just an interim assessment or an exercise or whatsoever, this doesn't matter because the student doesn't get graded for that. But in grading, usually you would say, okay, I don't punish the students also for follow-on error. Usually, it depends on. Sometimes you want to have the correct result. If someone constructs a bridge, it doesn't help you if the bridge breaks down, but he tells, yeah, there's a follow-on error, but it needs to be correct. So it depends on the intention, but normally you look on follow-on errors. Now, this is also the issue why correcting these exams is a pain in the ass, because at the end, you always have to calculate by hand these follow-on errors, and this is what makes it so time consuming. And this can be handled also in the Excel sheet. And I want to show you now finally how you can handle follow-on errors via an automated correction within Excel. So before doing that, we go briefly back to Moodle. And I have generated now a demo test and preview quiz with 2 questions. So assign the elements is question 1. So this is whatsoever. Next page. And question 2 is my calculation question. And this is exactly the question we have actually discussed with a background question. What is the area? Interim result. How would you judge the size of the apartment? And a bonus question. Now, and I have done this exam 3 times on my own. And I have 4 attempts, and you see my responses to the DAG were not so excellent. And I have made several different errors here. So the first attempt was perfect. Everything was correct. The second attempt with respect to the calculation, we neglect the DAG assignment. The second attempt, you see I had an error in the area of the apartment, so room A, B were correct. The third attempt, I had the problem I have explained. Room A was correct, B was wrong, and obviously, therefore, also the area of the apartment was not correct, despite the fact that this is really adding these 2 numbers. Here you also see the precision of my cursor length was not correct. Now, by the way, this was with the wrong formula, but this we have to take care about that. Now, what is also not correct is this following field is included for technical reasons, can be ignored. This is also not correct. What is in this field? The correct answer is 4. Here, the number of the data set is deposited. So I have here the number of the data set which has been drawn for this exercise. This is important because I need to use, if I want to correct the exam, I need to know this number. And of course, I cannot generate data sets in between. So you have to save as soon as you have generated the exam. And if you want to use that also for evaluations, you have to keep that. Okay, so let's have a look how this can be realized in the Excel sheet. So this is the calculation, the solution, and this is the aux calculation. By the way, with the wrong formula here, but I have to keep that because I have solved the exam with the wrong formula. So therefore, I cannot go back because I have already imported the data set. Now, what you have to include if you correct that. This correction is, of course, something, don't do that at the very beginning. This is making things more complex. So you see, you add up the complexity here, but then it's extremely helpful now if you use the full functionality. In addition, now you have this sheet evaluation you need to take. So what is in this evaluation? So I have my area A, area B, area apartment, whether it's a large apartment, bonus length keystones. So I have the result of the calculation from my auxiliary sheet. So I just take this value and this value here in the evaluation. However, for further calculation, I take either this value or the result of the student. So if I have a student result and if it's the same, everything is fine. So I just put the 27.3, which is the correct response. So then you see now my correct response here. I have 1 point achieved. This has been attributed 1 point. I got 1 point and the answer is correct. Now, if I put here, for example, if the student has calculated here 15, then, of course, this answer is not correct. But if he would calculate now 42.3, this is handled as correct. To achieve that, of course, these results need to go back into your aux calculation. Look at the sheet. You will learn that based on the sheet. So the area of the apartment is not calculated anymore, just adding these two values. The area of apartment is calculated by adding these evaluation results. And the same is true for the parameter calculation. So you bring back these results then to the to your solution sheet or your aux calculation sheet, and then you can handle these follow on error. So you just need to copy that and adopt it to your thing. So what you see here is also the solution. So this generates also a comment which can be copied later on into Moodle. I will show you in a second how that works, that you can manually grade, because that's what you need to do then for each assessment. You need to bring back if the grade is adjusted, you need to adjust that in Moodle also. And it's ideal if you write why this has been adjusted, and this is generated automatically. Okay, so now what you need to do with your with your answers, you need to export your answers and just then open that. You export as an Excel sheet. So this is an export of the answers from Moodle into Excel. So this is how Moodle does it. So we don't care too much. So this is how it looks like. So this is not modified at present. This is again what comes in from Moodle. Now I have to reformat that, and that reformatting is also done with a macro. So there are some features inside which reformats that exactly how I need that. And I would really say it helps a lot if you use that, if you have at least an idea of VBA, because there might be conflicts and so on which are not yet handled. Things are again getting more complex here. But you see that the separator here is part. So response 2, this is the response 2 or the question 2 we're talking about, and the responses are separated by part. In the English setting, if it's in the German setting, it's different, then it will be Teil, and then you need to adjust that in the VBA macro in order that it's separated correctly, also the decimal lineator and so on. So you might need to play around a bit if you want to use that, and especially if you're a different language setting, then you will need to adopt that in the VBA code. Yeah, so this is not included that it's automatically recognizing the language and so on. Okay. So now this is the sheet. Now with this sheet I cannot use at present. So what I do is I have to format the student sheet. This is a formula. I go to Developer Tools, Format Student Sheet, and I have to tell it what is the question number I'm interested, and it's question number 2. And you see that it separates then automatically the question. So this is how we have done it. And it's just and I have the raw code still here. It's wise not to kill that, but just make a copy that you can always go back. Sometimes you need to manually change the values if the input of the students is wrong. This we also will see. Now, what I'm also doing is, this is column 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. You will see in a second why I'm doing that. And this is column 10. I'm just putting here the column in numbers. And you see then I have in column number 9, I have this value and so on. And of course, these values correspond to the order they appear here in the solution. So the first value appearing is the apartment size, then it's A, then it's B. So then it's the area of the apartment, and then it's the bonus curbstone. So in other words, as we start with column 9, this value is in column 9, this value is in column 10, this value is in column 11. This is hidden, so this doesn't appear. This is column 12, this is column 13. So in my evaluation, I have to tell now the sheet where to find the value. So you see area A is 10 and 11, area apartment is 9, whether it's a large apartment or not, it's in 12, and whether it's the bonus, the length of the curbstone is in 13. And I have included the number, so this is now in the correct response. So again, you need to play around a bit. Things are not so easy. So the correct response here, this field has been included for technical reason. The correct response here includes the number of the data set. So 2 is the data set used for this question, 1 is the data set for this, and so on. So in 20, the data set is included. So this I need to put here. What is the student data set number? This is 20. And what I can do now is, and now comes the magic. So at present, I didn't do any checking. I did a reformatting. Now I can go again to macros and say, transfer student results, execute, and you see on one mouse click, this has been corrected. And you see also that there is a color coding here. So you see that, of course, it's always the same name because it's 4 times me. You see that there is a color coding here. If it's green, it's correct. If it's red, it's not correct. If it's both underlined, it is the result, exactly the result, what has been depicted in Moodle. So this is important. If it's yellow, it is 50%. So you remember we have watched this third example, and there the precision was lower. This is also considered here. Now you see the first one, you remember this was fully correct, no problem. So full points, 5 points and 2 bonus points. So for the second, also no problem, because there we had the A was calculated wrongly. So AB was calculated correctly. 1011 is AB, but the apartment was not calculated correct. Here to check that here it's difficult, but here you see that there are inconsistencies. You see that here is an inconsistency. This is correct within Moodle. So the original result deposited is also in Moodle. You considers that as correct. However, it's wrong in the calculation of the student. That could be a typo whatsoever. So we have to take care about that. But let's start first with, because analyzing that in this view is difficult. So we go to macros, transfer single student, and we want to transfer the student in the line number 6. Okay. From translator, okay, it's just me, so therefore this helps not too much. And now in the evaluation, I have transferred the results of the students, and at the same time, I have transferred the values of the data set. So the correct data sets is used and the values are used. So you see that this is exactly correct, and the area of the apartment is wrong, and therefore 0 points were attributed. Everything is fine. Now let's see what happened with the student number 8. So let's transfer the data of student number 8. Transfer single student 8. Of course, this is also Joe Fensler, so this doesn't change too much. So we can again go to evaluation. So you see that here area A, area B was correctly calculated. Area A, there was a calculation error. And it looks like, if you look at the result, it's 27.3, and it's in reality, it's 30. He or she put 23. In this case, it's a he because it's Joe Fensler, 23.7. So it looks like the numbers were inverted. If I take that out, you see that the end result again gets correct. So it's most likely just the numbers were flipped. What I always do is I always say the calculation sheets are also handed in within the exam, so I can check that at the end. If this is just a typo or so. Usually I don't do that because I say to students what counts is what you put in the interims result, because this will always take, if they then say, yeah, he will do that anyhow, then I don't gain any minutes because I have to look in their calculation where that is. But there are cases where you do that. Third trials and so on, for example, you for sure will do that. However, in general, what I do in general is this. I say, okay, most likely this was a problem here. If I would keep that, you see the student has only 2 points because he would get 2 points here. If I remove that, the student has more points because this area of the apartment gives more points. This here gives 0 points anyhow. So then I can say, okay, additional note. The area A most likely is a typo. Value removed, therefore area correct. Now I can write back single student. And I can do that for the student number 8. Okay. And you see, now this is corrected. You see that the points are transferred. And this HTML code takes into account the grading. So if I copy that, I can show you. I'm copying now this. Then I go back to Moodle. And this is exactly the wrong, hopefully the wrong point. I can go there into field make comment or override mark. And in this field, I can then correct. So I think instead of 3 points, we are now at 5 points. View is source code. I just paste what has been in this field, and you see the grading takes a total scale, and you see that now on my comment. Now I have a comment, grading takes into account, and now I have all the things I did in the interim result added, including the comment that the area A most likely is a typo. So I can then transfer that and directly do that. And of course, that's way faster than doing this by hand. Okay. I told you this is the most complex sheet, and using that fully takes a while. And also I did not generate the first version of the sheet, was certainly not the complete version. However, if you use the full version and if you have calculations, of course, where the major part of your results are numbers, it's still Moodle, it's not an Excel, it's not math, so you cannot, it doesn't correct with AI calculation paths, or it doesn't correct integrations or solutions of differential equations and so on. It's if the major part of your results are numbers, then you can use that. If the major part of your results are still formulas, then it's only of limited value. Then at the end, you can use close questions, but it's not really a calculation. So here it's about numbers, and it depends on what you do. It is very helpful if you have quite complex calculations where you often have follow and own errors, then it's really helpful to use it. Setting up such a question like you have seen in bioprocess engineering, the setup of such a question with all functionality, including then the re-import, this takes at least 6 or 7 hours. So you don't set up such a question in 5 minutes. So of course, that's the most complex way to do it. However, as soon as you have set up the question, students are students at the end. The next time you might modify the text, you might modify some numbers and a bit, then things are of course way faster than setting up the question the first time. So if you have your pool of questions, then things are way easier and way faster. And you don't do wrong calculations in the follow on error as soon as your Excel sheet is correct. So again, you can download the sheet. You can try the sheet you can download contains the complete evaluation. I would not recommend you to start like this. Start easier. And for all the interims assessments where you have no grading and so on, it doesn't matter. You don't need that. But you can do also use it for full evaluations in the exam. This is how the explanation is. Of course, I cannot give a service and adapt it to your language model and so on. I'm a professor in biotechnology. I just use it. I offer it to you. If you want to adopt it, you might need some VBA. If you have time and say I adopt it, go to GitHub and I can add you as a developer. You can open a new branch and then we can integrate that. Cool, we can do that, but I cannot promise to do it myself because that's a question of time. Okay, so again, this was the calculation. Hopefully you also you can also use maybe the other Excel sheets. That's what I wanted to say here. Thanks a lot for your attention. Have fun with using these sheets. Hopefully your students also have fun. And thanks a lot. Goodbye.